Welcome to the Business Performance Podcast, where we feature expert thought leaders and cover their best strategies, stories, and advice that you can use to successfully mature your own business performance. Now, here is your host, business coach, Henry Schneider. Hello, everyone. This is Henry Schneider with the Business Performance Podcast, and today I'm talking with Jason Harris of Digital Dealership Solutions, a business that he's been in now for the past 11 years. So, Jason, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate you taking the time to jam with me.
Okay, Jason. So to begin with, to put everything in context so people know what Digital Dealership Solutions is, would you please briefly describe your company, your customers, and the types of products and services you deliver?
Sure, not a problem. So we are an automotive-specific marketing agency that specializes in video. So video creation, video editing, video distribution. That is a significant part of our business. Strategy is kind of at the core of everything we do. So when we work with clients, it's really a matter of defining out what their goals and objectives are, and then reverse engineering backwards to create the creative and the strategies required to actually help meet those goals and objectives. I've been in the automotive industry for some time, a little over 15 years. I'm originally from the States, so please don't hold that against me. I did not vote for Trump, so don't ask. I've been in Canada for the last 10 years, and it's been a bit of a ride watching the industry kind of grow in the Canadian marketplace, specifically in the automotive sector.
Okay, so are you primarily focused in Canada, or are you also supporting the U.S.?
We dabble in the U.S. because of my nationality. I do have a handful of clients in the U.S., but majority of our clients are in Canada, yeah. So
just right along the border where everybody lives, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So when you work with your clients, what is the importance or value of quality of what you deliver to them?
Well, I think what really kind of makes us different as far as how we deliver our marketing efforts is two parts, actually. One part, we come from a very operational understanding and background. The fact that I have been in the business for such a long time, I have sold cars, I have been a manager, I've been a general manager, I've even been a dealer principal and owned my own dealership. So when we come into a marketing meeting or we come into a dealership, we come from a very high level operational understanding of what they're going through on a day-to-day basis. I would say second part that really makes us kind of unique out there as far as a value proposition is our commitment to strategy, meaning that we're not just going to run ads for the sake of running ads or create creative for the sake of creating creative. It's like everything we do has a very defined goal and objective in mind, and because of that, we're probably one of the few, I would say, marketing automotive agencies and show real ROI in our efforts.
Okay. Wonderful. So what are some of the biggest misconceptions out there when it comes to quality and performance when you're working with the dealerships?
Biggest misconceptions for myself or as an industry?
Well, no, for you as a consultant and your company, when you go out there to work with your clients, what do they think you can do that you can't do?
Well, I think the biggest misconceptions that a lot of my clients have is that that they can just cut us a check every month and we do everything. We're not. I'll give, for example, how can I explain this? I do not have contracts, which in my space is very abnormal. It is kind of absurd for an agency to create a relationship with a client without having some type of contractual agreement between the two of them. I don't believe in it. I tell all my clients that we are in a courtship. It is a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. All right. I'm going to need things from you to maintain my portion of the relationship, and you're going to need things from me to maintain your portion of the relationship. The advantage that brings is that we are both accountable for the strategies that we put forth. So execution is not just completely reliant on me. I have what I need to execute, and my clients have what they need to execute. I have a actually, I just heard this recently. I have a dirty reputation in the industry of firing clients. I want to make it real clear since we're on your podcast, I can clarify this. I don't fire clients, but I will break up with clients for the simple reason that our strategies require both a give and take from both parties. That if a client is not leaning into our strategy and doing their part of execution, then I do unfortunately have to break up with them, and I do that. I don't take a long time to do it. I do it pretty quickly, but it's just at the end of the day, we're a boutique agency. There's only so many people we can work with, and we have to make sure that we're working with the best clients so we can provide them the best results.
Okay. So when you say you're boutique, how many people do you have? What size are you?
So I have 23 people on staff.
Okay.
So I guess it's not small, but it's we're definitely not a big box retailer. Let's say that,
you still fit in the boutique box.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So a lot of times we say boutique, we're talking like 1 or 2 people. So you've got a nice size, comfortable staff size.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the biggest challenge that you face with business performance?
So the biggest challenge that we have facing business performance is actually kind of going back to even what I kind of said earlier, is that a fair amount of dealerships are looking for a transactional relationship or more of just a transaction with an agency. It's like, I got $5,000 to spend. Can I have $5,000 worth of ads? And that's all they want. It's just kind of this transaction type thing. And that's probably our biggest struggle, because we don't want to do that transaction, even though if you ask my operations manager, he would say our life would be a lot better if I did more of that. But no, because our goal and objective is to create a relationship and to strategically work together to meet the dealership's goal and objectives, that's always kind of been probably the hardest part, is just really getting dealerships to embrace this relationship and this back and forth.
So it brings up an interesting question, because when you start dealing with dealership management or just management in general, a lot of times they do not clearly articulate their business goals and objectives. So how do you get over that hump so they can do that, so they can start providing services to them?
Well, that's actually a really good question, Henry. And what I find is that, to your point, actually, a lot of dealerships don't even have necessarily properly documented goals and objectives. So that's where kind of our background, or my background in the industry and operations is, I actually probably spend more time talking about operations and goals and objectives than I ever end up talking about actual marketing. And so I actually have to go in, and a lot of times the first month or 2 that I work with the dealership, I come in more as a consultant. Mm-hmm. And that consultant can be from everything from processes to people to measurable efforts and how they all kind of intertwine with each other. It goes pretty far above and beyond just what our marketing offerings are.
Yeah, I can imagine. This is a kind of an art to do this, to facilitate, because even a lot of times people say, okay, they got pie in the sky, good things, but they don't attach any measurable goals that you can actually track progress towards. They just say, I want to be bigger, I want to sell more cars.
Yep.
By what percent? What's realistic and what's not?
Well, and that's true too, right? I mean, as an industry, the automotive industry is down right now. And a lot of people are freaking out about that. And I don't think it's actually anything to freak out about. I've been in the automotive industry now that I've seen 2 of these cycles, and I just call them plateaus. We've run the last 5 to 6 years, double-digit gains, like quarter after quarter after quarter after quarter. And at some point in time, that's going to slow down. And we've hit that stage now where it's going to slow down. But if I told you 10 years ago that we were going to, in Canada, sell over 2 million units, you would have laughed and said, okay, yeah, that sounds awesome. But we have. And now we're back on the plateau portion. We're going to sell less than that. 2017 for us as an industry was the biggest part of our industry. Now we're into 2018, 2019. We're beginning to see a flat line. And I think over 2020, we're going to see another flat line. So, in that type of time frame, it's like, what can you do to really kind of make yourself different?
Mm-hmm. So what do you see in terms of the types of cars the mix, gasoline powered versus hybrid versus electric cars.
Well, you know what? It's funny because people still want a lot. Everyone loves talking about technology, right?
Yeah.
And look, as far as Canada goes, our adoption into electric vehicles has been, let's say, we're above the U.S. as far as a percentage, but we're also below as far as a percentage than our counterparts in the UK. So, we kind of I would say we're in the middle of the pack when it comes to adoption of technology. I mean, obviously the hybrid technology has gotten a lot less expensive. If you're looking at the cost split between like a RAV4, Toyota RAV4 gas and a Toyota RAV4 hybrid is now only like $4,000 or $5,000 between them, which at one point in time, we were talking about $10,000+ difference, between them. And now we're down to only about a $4,000 difference between them. So the cost has come down to a point where people can say, oh, okay, well, that kind of makes sense. People used to use the gas savings as being a reason why they would shift over to a hybrid or electric car. But the cost difference between the cars were so outrageous, you'd have to drive a crap load to actually ever see those savings. But now we're getting back down into that space. But technology is always going to continue to adapt. It's always going to continue to get better. Manufacturers are making big, bold commitments saying they're going to be fully electric by 2027, stuff like that. So I don't really see. There's nothing. I don't think from a dealership's perspective that they have to go and dramatically change what they're doing right now just because of technology. Now, what I think dealerships do need to be aware of is how we own a car. Mm-hmm. That's going to change a lot in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, no, a lot of the young people coming up don't see the value in owning cars anymore. They're rather to do ride share or take public transportation. So, I guess it all depends upon where you live. If you live out in the country, you're going to need it no matter what. But if you're in the urban area, you can get away without having a car.
Yeah, I think what it is, and that's a very small percentage, but we love talking about that topic because as agencies, we love talking about millennials and car buying because as an agency, we'll pretend like we have the answer of how to sell cars to millennials, and it drives me bloody bonkers when I see crap like that. But that's a really small percentage of the younger crowd that's moving into heavy metropolitan areas and not purchasing cars. But the funny thing is, they're still using cars. They're just using cars in a different way, right? So there's a lot of ride-sharing programs, and that's how they're using cars. So that doesn't necessarily decrease the amount of cars that actually get put into the system. In fact, if you think of like Uber's actually increased the amount of new car sales.
Wow, yeah, because everybody's trying to get their side hustle on, right?
Exactly. Well, I have a videographer that drives with me, and he's actually my driver as well. So when he drops me off at night at home, the hour back to his house, he participates in Uber Eats. So he picks up food and drops it off. Yeah. Well, he does that every single night. The course of a month, he nets about $600 additional in disposable income every month. So but that's now pushing him to think that he should get a newer car because A, he's able to afford it, and B, it's also just the reliability part of it. He's driving an older car. If he gets into a newer car, he doesn't have to necessarily do Uber Eat. Now he can actually do Uber rides, right, and get even more, side hustle there. So I know a lot of people out there love to say like that is changing, that's actually hurting our industry, but it's the polar opposite. It's actually not hurting our industry at all.
Yeah, this may be hurting the taxi industry, but not so much car sales.
Yes. In fact, actually, it helped car sales. It really did. I mean, look, there are some manufacturers that even went as far as actually creating leasing programs just for people in Uber and Lyft type formats. GM in the States has a 24-month Uber Lyft leasing program.
Wow. That's innovating, trying to stay up to with everything else is going on as technology changes. Okay.
It's capitalizing on that attention, right?
Yeah.
Now, the big question, the one that people really should be talking about, is ownership. Mm-hmm. I mean, right now you have two formats of ownership: you finance or you lease, right?
Right. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much that's the only concept of ownership that we've had for. I mean, look, leasing got real popular in the last 30 years. Mm-hmm. So we've gone 30 years and we've never changed a concept of ownership. Like, that's kind of crazy. Now, out of new cars in Canada, roughly 30% of all new cars are leased.
Yeah.
So 70% is still financing. Now, if there was a third option to ownership, that could even open up even more doors for us.
Layaway.
Well, I think what you're looking at is like subscription models.
Yeah.
I think that'd be one.
The problem is that car prices have gotten so outrageously expensive. It's like buying a house these days. You can't afford it. You can't just afford to go into an agency and drop down a wad of cash and walk out with a car. You do have to finance it or lease it in some fashion.
Yep. So that's why I see subscription models becoming another portion of it, right?
Yeah. So
why own when you can just subscribe to an account and have access to multiple vehicles whenever you need them? When you need a fuel efficient vehicle, you drop a fuel efficient vehicle. When your family's coming to town, you need a minivan, you get a minivan.
Mm-hmm. Well, we had I'm in Austin. We had Car2Go here, but
that's right.
But they pulled out as of October 31st. So I'm not certain what the problem was, because the cars were all over the place and constantly in use.
I think it's a model that we just quite haven't figured out. It's from a financial perspective and a business perspective. We just quite haven't figured out what that model is. But I think that over the next 5 to 10 years, there are manufacturers that are trying to figure it out. There are big dealer groups that are trying to figure it out. And I think we're eventually going to get to the point where people will embrace the model. So you have now a volume level of people embracing it. And then we'll just financially figure out how we can make it profitable.
Yeah. I think they upgraded to Mercedes, and I think that may have been a mistake to roll out Mercedes all over the city. That's a huge financial investment as opposed to the little smart cars I used to have.
Yes, and that's why I see the people that are really going to roll it out. I think is either going to be the manufacturer, which there are manufacturers right now that already have subscription models and they're beta testing. GM's got one, Porsche's got one, Volvo's got one. I think Volvo's like $1,500 a month. I think Porsche's is like between $2,000 to $3,000. I think Cadillac's is right around that $1,000 or $1,500 mark. So there's still real high leveled ones. We haven't seen any $400, $500, $600 subscription models yet.
Yeah, I know. Like, I think what I've seen here is that Porsche's got a thing called Silver Car, where you can lease the car. Just right the same as rental car rental rates. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so could you share a story that how you've helped a dealership overcome these obstacles and get their hands around digital marketing, etc.?
What's funny is I do digital marketing, but when I work with a dealership, strategically, I want them to actually not be reliant on digital marketing. You got to think of constantly paying for an ad. What you're doing is you're buying attention, right? But what do you do with that attention? If you're not able to maintain that attention at a lower cost or almost damn near to a $0 cost, my operations manager, we fight about this quite often because I actually would like my clients to get to the point where they actually don't need me. Yeah. I actually want to put myself out of business. I don't, I want to get them to the point where they don't have to spend that $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 every month in paid efforts, right? Right, yeah. So to do that, to help a dealership do that, we have to help them define what their unique proposition or what their brand stands for, right? I mean, when someone's going to go buy a Nissan product and they have 37 Nissan stores they can choose from, all right, which Nissan store am I going to choose? There has to be a reason for that, right? Mm-hmm. So I would say right now, my focus, I'm trying to think of a story. Okay, I'll give you for example. All right, I have a dealership way up north, all right, Chevy dealership. They're in, let's say, cottage country. For everybody watching or listening, just to kind of paint the picture, they're in cottage country, right? So population not overly huge, it just kind of feeds in from multiple cities around them. And I was up there working with their managing team and some sales team, doing some training and coaching with them, which I do, but not too often. It's a small part of my business. And I had a salesperson there that I got talking with, an older gentleman, in his retirement age, but he wanted to continue to work, so he decided to sell cars. And this guy could not sell a car if his life depended on it. Just could not, just really, really struggled with creating that relationship with the customer and being able to communicate in a way that you could really kind of communicate out the value propositions of the product and so on and so forth. It's really, really struggled. So he just was literally selling a handful of cars every single month and got to the point where he was about out the door and didn't want to do it anymore. And so I sat down and went to work with them and realized that cars wasn't necessarily his passion. It was just something that he was doing, right, to make some money. And I'm actually okay with that. I don't think every single person in this industry has to have like huge car passion, right? So then I got talking to him and found out what his real passion was. And he was actually a retired professional angler. Now, for everybody out there that don't know what an angler is, I didn't either. I had to look it up. That's a fisherman. He actually fished professionally. That's what his job was. He did competitions and was sponsored and all kinds of cool stuff. And so when I started talking to him about that, I'm like, tell me a story. Tell me a story about one of your competitions or one of your favorite runs or whatever it was, right? Well, the passion that he had in describing this was astronomical. Mm-hmm. So I said, this is perfect. All right. Now I want you to sit in the back of the pickup truck. All right. And I want you to tell me that story one more time. And he did. And we put it onto a video and we posted it out there for people to see. Was a while ago now. I think it's almost been 6 to 9 months since he started doing this. Now, every 2 weeks, he does the exact same thing. He goes online and he does this fishing story from the back of his Silverado. And he's created a following of people that kind of known him in the industry and now are following him. And the value that he brings to the customer, all right, is not necessarily the value of his ability to sell you a car, but his passion and love for fishing. Yeah. And anybody that's up there that loves fishing are following him because he knows all the great spots, he knows all the great lures, he knows all this information. He gives this information for free. He's got now over 20,000 people following him. But what he's gained from that is actually a database of people that are also referring him to people that they know for the automotive side. He's pretty open about it, right? He's like, look, fishing's my passion, selling cars is my job. Yeah. Right. So he's now getting referrals, monthly referrals. He sells about anywhere between 4 to 6 cars a month directly from this audience. And that's just continuing to grow all the time. I got an email from him last month. He had one of his best months ever. And half of his sales were actually from referrals. So that's even gotten even more incremental. So, but that came from at the beginning is that I had to pay to put his message out in front of people. Now I've got to the point where I don't have to pay to put his message out there. People are organically and actively pursuing him and watching his content, and he's reaping the benefits of that. So that was a huge success for us. I really like that one.
So if you could to summarize that down now as a moral, what would be the moral of that story?
Yeah, I think what it is that customers want a deeper story than just the story of price and product, right? They want to relate to you as an individual at a personal level first, right? And then professionally. So if they can relate to you at a personal level first and then professionally get along with you, it's a win-win situation.
Yeah. So it sounds like in this case here, like because of his passion as an angler, he can build that rapport with other fishermen. And then they'll talk about that and say, oh, by the way, let me show you this vehicle. And then you've already got that, and you've built that relationship, and then the sales just follow.
Yeah, and that's at just an individual salesperson level. Right. Now we can do that at a dealership as well, but for us to do that, the dealerships need to understand that the customer's expectation is not that we just meet the expectation, but that we exceed the expectation. Mm-hmm. That's their expectation now.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So it's not enough that I just provide the product and service that they pay for. All right. My value has to exceed the product or service that they paid for.
Yeah. Yeah. The customers are looking for that wow experience. What is it that's so great about going to dealership A as opposed to dealership B that sells the same vehicles?
Now, I figured out a great way to actually help dealerships figure out what that is. And what I call it social worthiness. All right. Is what you do or how you do it social worthy? Is it unique enough, different enough to be social worthy? Now, people ask me, I go, Jason, like what's social worthy? I was in Chicago a couple months ago for a conference I got hired to speak at. And we were out for lunch. And we were in this high-rise building. I can't remember even what building it was, but the restaurant was a just normal restaurant with a nice view and stuff like that. And then I went to the bathroom. And in the bathroom's floor was completely glass. meaning at 18 floors up, you're looking straight down. Okay. All right. I was like, wow. So, of course, I took a picture.
Mm-hmm.
I posted that on social. The funny thing is I was in there for about 5 or so minutes, and I watched multiple people did the exact same thing that I did. So then I went to go, and it was funny because I said, this is a thing. I get this now, right? So then when I actually went to go look up the restaurant that I was at, guess what all the pictures of this restaurant, there were so many pictures posted of this restaurant that didn't have anything to do with the food or the restaurant itself, but the bloody bathroom. People were going to this restaurant just so they can go take a tinkle.
Yeah. And that's probably one of those things where you walk in and you just freeze because you can't go to the urinal too.
It was just like, it was different. I can imagine you're probably not going to want to go to. What's funny to compromise that they actually did have another bathroom that didn't have that type of view. So if you were afraid of heights, there was another option for you. But talk about now. Look, did they do that knowingly? No, probably not. All right. But what they created is they created a social worthy, all right, piece of something. Okay. And the restaurant reaped tremendous benefits from that. And you know what? The food was okay. Don't get me wrong. The decor of the place was okay, but it was that one little thing that just totally set it apart.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's the problem. Yeah, it's inadvertent, but somebody made the conscious decision. Hey, this would be a nice thing to have, and now it's attractive and gets all this attention. So.
Oh yeah, online there was literally like 12,000 pictures of this bathroom. I was just like, I was blown away. I was absolutely blown away.
All right, so when you, we've kind of talked about this on and off, but when you work with the dealerships, what are some of the common pitfalls or mistakes that they make that you need to keep in mind when you're talking to them?
What are some of the common pitfalls and mistakes that dealerships make when we're working with them? It's typically the inability to execute on something. So, I will find with a lot of dealerships that they'll create the idea. They'll even go as far as even documenting the process, right, of how to execute on whatever that idea or strategy is. The third element, which is really creating a measurable efforts, without a way to measure the efforts of your process, a process eventually just falls apart, right? It just falls apart. For the first month or two, it may be super solid, but then it just kind of falls out. So I find one of the biggest pitfalls is that we go as far as identifying the people that are going to help us execute. We'll maybe go as far as documenting the process, but it's that third level which really creates a stickiness, and that's really defining how we're going to measure the efforts of that process.
Yeah. And another thing that goes along with that too is an independent, objective evaluation of adherence to the process. You have somebody come up, an external set of eyes coming in and say, "Okay, how's it working for you guys?" Oh, well, it's not. Okay, let's see what we can do to fix it.
Well, they feel that way, or they think that way.
Yeah.
The problem is because they're not actually measuring those efforts. Then all they have to go off is just their gut or what their head is saying. And to your point, exactly, that's usually what they say. I feel it's not working for us.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing too is we're talking with different people is that a lot of times the dealers will combine sales and service together, and they don't see that where the money pit is. Mm-hmm. They're profitable, but it could be they're losing all kinds of money on a service and they're really profitable on sales, or vice versa. One department's keeping them afloat, but they don't see it.
Yeah, it's I would say it's another pitfall in our industry is that we kind of treat our dealerships as an ocean with multiple islands. Mm-hmm. And they're not necessarily always united with each other, and most definitely not united as far as their efforts go. So you got the parts department on one island, the service department on another island, the new and used car department on their island, and if you have a collision department, it's definitely on an island. and sometimes the communication back and forth to each other, I swear, is almost limited to Morse code.
Mhm.
or like flags being flown back and forth, and that's about as little it is, right? So that's a big missed opportunity there, and it's something that we like to help our dealerships is trying to bridge the communication efforts to each other, because at the end of the day, it actually ultimately helps us effectively be better marketers when we can get the dealership, we can get the service manager to look at, and the new car manager to understand that this is a holistic, all right, relationship. This is not like, okay, I sold them a car, now I transfer them over to the service department. Now the service department has to maintain it. It's their responsibility, but everybody has to maintain that relationship.
So when you look at the dealerships, how much actually do you see as people working together as a team or just a collection of individuals?
The hundreds and hundreds of dealerships I've been in the last few years, I would say probably roughly 10% of them actually operate as a team, and probably roughly about 90% of them operate as just single individuals.
Yeah, so that's probably the basic core issue there, because everybody's in it for themselves rather than for it's a team effort to help the dealership out.
Oh yeah, I mean, I could probably count on one hand, literally one hand, how many dealerships have gotten to a point where they've brought these islands together to create one singular culture that's all working together collectively towards a goal and objective. But the cool thing is that I know what those dealerships are, because you almost feel the energy when you walk into them. And you could 100% see the difference on their P&L statement. Like, it is just obvious.
Yeah, I mean, you can look. I mean, the other thing, like Car Max seems to have a really good system.
Well, they've done a very good job of branding what their culture is, for sure, right? Are they operationally at that level? I don't know yet. They're not profitable yet.
Well, yeah, and I've also gone to an Infinity dealership. Their service is outstanding, but you do get a high pressure on the sales side. So,
well, and that's look, to our industry. You want to talk about another pitfall, right? The way we fundamentally pay our employees is ridiculous. All right, the fact that we pay them a commission on a gross profit, which they have almost no freaking control of whatsoever. In fact, even managers don't have control of the gross profit. I mean, it's a little different in the US than it is in Canada. It's even more strict in Canada, but we can't even sell over MSRP. So I am literally working within what wholesale and retail is, and that is it. Right. And look, manufacturers keep charging more and more. We're only able to sell for more and more. So the profitability is the profitability. Like, we don't have a whole hell of a lot of control over that.
Marketing keeps shrinking on you.
Yeah. And then to top it off, it's like you pay a salesperson a percentage of that commission on what they make. Look, is it the salesperson's fault that when a customer comes in that they're pushed maybe to a slightly different product that they make more commission on? No, it's not their fault. It's a damn pay structure. I mean, that's the way it was built.
Yeah, that's it. And it drives that behavior.
Oh, it's not customer centric at all. Like, it's not. I mean, how is that beneficial to the customer at all, right? So, I mean, that's something that another big pitfall in our industry is that if we keep saying we want to be customer centric, we keep saying we want to provide a better experience. Yet very few dealerships have ever actually addressed with the core of why they're not providing, a good customer experience, and that is because their pay plans are built for them, not for the customer.
Right. So it would take a visionary car dealer owner to be able to transform the entire organization to make that happen. Otherwise, you're just going to continue this old boy network type of behaviors on and on and on.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So now, can you spend a few moments talking about a defining moment you had in your life that led you to do what you are doing today?
A defining moment that led me to my life to do what I do today. You know what? For me, strategy has just always kind of been a part of who I am. I've just, even from a very young age, I would look at a business, or I would look, at what somebody was doing, or I would watch a sports team, and what I would see is I would see the strategy that was put into it. So I knew from a very young age that my aptitude for understanding strategy and how all these moving parts get connected to each other was just a big part of kind of who I am. So that was kind of an awareness part, right? I was very aware from a young age that this is just a talent that I had. I got into marketing because I saw marketing as being one of the biggest strategical opportunities, right? Of how you communicate value propositions to the customers, how you develop out brand equity, how do you target multiple audiences. Like, there's just so much strategy that goes into it, which then also led me into operations, right? It's like how the marketing and operations have to go hand in hand with each other. So was it I wouldn't say it was one single moment that did it. It was more of just at a young age, but being aware and just kind of translating in. Now, what was maybe a single moment, a shift in my professional career is I was doing a lot of consulting for a lot of car dealerships. I was a general manager of a Hyundai dealership. I then became the VP of marketing for a large automotive group. And I think that was probably one of those defining moments that I said, hey, look, I'll give you a year of my life. If you guys can get your crap together, I'll give you another year of my life. And I think we made it just about a year. Mm. And it was amazing for me to see that even at this high level of quote unquote operations, that they could not fundamentally work together as a group, but more as just a group of dealers, not necessarily an actual group. Mm. So that was that defining moment that said, you know what, I'm done for working for people that do it wrong. I'm just enough's enough, and I'm just going to do it myself and do it right. And that's when I left and started my own dealership. So that was probably a big defining moment in my professional career.
Okay. Now, a similar question, but from a slightly different perspective. Would you share an experience you had over your life that still influences how you approach business today?
You know what? There was one of my very first jobs was working for RadioShack. And you got a lot of people watching this in the States, so I can actually say RadioShack. Up here in Canada, not everybody knew what RadioShack was. But back when I worked for RadioShack, it was a big deal to work for RadioShack. I mean, you had to know your stuff. I mean, there were a tremendous amount of books and education you had to go through. But when I worked for RadioShack, I had my first manager, and I told him at a very young age, the reason I wanted to work for RadioShack is because I wanted to be a manager. That was literally what my goal and objective was. I wasn't looking for a job. I wanted to be a manager, and I made it very clear to them. And I remember my very first manager telling me, here's the biggest thing you're going to learn about managing, and this will work for you for the rest of your life. And it's still, even today, is that you don't manage people. You manage the process. You let the process manage the people. Mm. And that was something that has just from the day I heard that to even today, it still resonates with me in such a huge way. And I think has fundamentally shifted just kind of how I've always approached things and working with teams and clients.
Yeah, that's a very important point. Very good advice, because if you focus on the process, you can fix the process.
Yes.
You can't fix people.
No, not usually. But a lot of people attempt to. Do you know what I mean? A lot of people that are in a managerial position will attempt to try to change or fix people. But it's that process that will have that built-in accountability to change that person's habits or behaviors.
Right. And so what happens in that case, they set quotas and measures on individuals, and then they get burned because they didn't meet their quotas. And it's got nothing to do with what they're doing. It's the process that may be inhibiting their performance.
And 9 times out of 10, that's usually the case. Like, honestly, people tell me they have a people problem. And I'll tell you, over 90% of the time when I go in, it's not a people problem, it's a process problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it comes back down to the fact that they're just a group of people or individuals as opposed to a team. The team can follow the process together, lockstep. But individuals are going to be doing all kinds of different things just to get the work done.
Yep.
Okay, so what does success look like for Jason Harris?
what does success looks like for Jason Harris? You know, it's funny. This is like the third time I got asked this question. This is just in the last 2 weeks.
So now you got an answer.
You know what? I actually haven't been able to come up with a good, effective one yet. You know, I don't want to. Success to me is not owning the Jets. All right. And there's other people out there that want to do that. I don't want to own a professional sports team. Success to me doesn't look like owning a big house or a Lamborghini or any of that stuff. I think for me, what success looks like is that I thoroughly enjoy running the marathon that I'm running. And for me, success is the ability to continue to run that marathon that I find so much enjoyment in doing.
All right, great. So now, as a business owner, what are your top 3 process or capability challenges that you face?
As a business owner, you know, the top 3 is actually, it's the people, right? It's those processes, right? And then it goes to those measurable efforts. I have that problem with my business. My clients have that problem with their business, you know, so that always, if there's ever a struggle, it usually falls into one of those 3 categories, right? It's either we don't have the right people to execute on what we're trying to execute on, we didn't define the process properly, or it's the wrong process, or, you know, we're not measuring the efforts required to get the process done. So we don't even know how good we actually are. We just think we're this good, or think we're this bad, you know? So those 3 things are, it is your strength and your weakness all at the same time.
Your Achilles heel, right?
Yeah. I think for almost any business, that's the case, right?
All right. So when dealers come looking or shopping around for the types of services that you provide, what's the most important question they should be asking?
What's the most important question they should be asking? If a dealership's looking for an agency to work with, all right, it not necessarily, what they should be looking for is not necessarily a question to them as an agency, all right, but what questions the agency is asking them, all right? If an agency is not wanting right out of the gate to get truly intimate with what your goals and objectives are, I mean, truly understand what your operational goals and objectives are, they are never going to be a good agency. But I don't care who they are. Like, if the agency doesn't have a real desire to really deep dive in or to assist in it, all right, that agency, I don't care how amazing their creative is, how astronomically cool their videos are, or whatever their tech is, I just don't care, all right, if that agency doesn't ask the questions and really truly understand your goals and objectives, don't even bother working with them.
Yeah, that brings up a really interesting point, because it's basically like not understanding what the true requirements are, what the dealer needs. You just build something flashy that looks good, shiny objects, but there's nothing, no substance. It's not going to really achieve anything.
And you know, in my world, the agency world, there's a crap ton of shiny objects. All right. There's a quote, I can't remember who says it, but it's a great one. I love it a lot. Right. Creative without strategy is called art.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Creative with strategy is called marketing. And in my world, in the agency world, there is a crap ton of artistic individuals out there.
Yeah. All right. So now, what's your competition like there in Canada for the same type of services that you provide?
Well, you know, that's kind of the cool part of what we do is, you know, because I'm not a big box retailer when it comes to marketing in the automotive space, that I fall into that very hands-on, one-on-one boutique, business model of marketing and agencies. So there isn't a whole lot. There really isn't. I could probably count on one hand how many people in my space that really take that true hands-on boutique consultative perspective to automotive marketing. Now, I think outside of the automotive vertical, I think there's some amazing boutique agencies out there that do exactly what I do, and I've met some and have created some great relationships there. But in the automotive vertical, it's mostly big box retailers.
Okay.
Us boutique guys are very far and few between.
All right. So what distinguishes you from the rest?
What distinguishes me is really my operational understanding of what they go through on a day-to-day basis. It's like if they're putting out, say, Jason, we want to advertise our Nissan Rogues, and we need to clear them out. Okay. Well, I have been in that position where I've had to clear out inventory, and it's not necessarily a fun position to be in, but kind of so taking that operational perspective and saying, like, look, you don't have an overstock problem. You've had an overstock problem. You're just now deciding to deal with your overstock problem. So, my ability to understand the position that they're in and to come in and say, look, this next year, all right, we're not going to have an overstock problem. We're going to get ahead of it. We're not going to be reactive. We're going to be proactive. All right. And you're not going to have to heavily discount these products just to get them off your lot. We're going to be very proactive about those efforts and start dealing with those overstock issues before they become an overstock issue.
All right. So now you've been in business a little over 11 years. If you had to start all over again from scratch, what would you do differently? What would you keep doing?
What would I do differently? What would I keep? You know what? I think, what would I do differently? Well, you know what? I don't know if I would do too much differently, because I've made a fair amount of mistakes in doing this. And it's, I've tasted everything. I've tried this. I mean, I'll be my biggest mistake side of the business. So I'm in the service side of the business. I want to go in the tech side of the business. So I spent over $65,000 developing out a lead management system that I thought was going to be like the next best thing. Mm-hmm. I've never built tech in my life. I had no idea what I was doing. I just went in it blindly, right? And pretty much came out of it with a $65,000 in education and what not to do on how to build a tech product. But it's like, I wouldn't do it differently. It's just like my understanding and now my knowledge and respect for what it takes to develop out a tech product, a SaaS product, and bring it to market is quite high now. So I can't imagine actually doing that differently. Even the mistakes I've made with people, I just, if I made mistakes, if I did, I would have never had that opportunity to learn for who should be the right person in that position, So I don't think I would change a whole lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's like I kind of liken this like to the zen of growing a business. The journey is more important than the end state. You learn a lot by going down that road. And you can't trade that for anything.
No, I seriously, I would just, I don't think I would ever return my mistakes, because the lessons and education that I received from them were so insanely valuable, even though financially sucks. I just don't think it's just, way too much learned education from making mistakes.
Okay. All right, Jason, we're rapidly running out of time here. We could keep going for hours, I think. It's very fascinating.
Probably.
So how can people get in touch with you to learn more about what you do?
Okay, well, cool. There's a couple different ways to get a hold of me. All right. LinkedIn is a great place, but I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Okay. You can follow me pretty much anywhere online at Strategy with Jason. And that is where I put out all of my content about operations and marketing and the trials and tribulations of being an entrepreneur. So if you want to follow me, that's a great place. Go to strategywithjason.com or .ca, or pretty much anywhere where you can consume content, podcasts, social. Strategy with Jason is where we are. If you want to learn more about what we do as a business, you want to take a look up at Digital Dealership Solutions. .ca. I know it's a mouthful. I apologize for that. But that is the best way to connect with me.
Okay. Well, great. Had some fantastic stories to talk about here, and I really enjoyed your advice, and it's just been wonderful. So thank you so much for your time today, Jason.
No, thank you for taking the time. This was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Business Performance Podcast with your business coach, Henry Schneider. For more episodes and business strategies, please visit welcome.ppqc.net/blog. That's www.welcome.ppqc.net/blog. And remember to subscribe so you can get the latest episodes. Thank you.